Good afternoon and welcome to the News Roundup for Wednesday, November 12, 2025. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. President Trump staunchly defending our nation's controversial visa program for skilled foreign workers by claiming the U.S. does not have enough talented people to fill a number of critical jobs. The Transportation Department cracking down on California's trucking industry after discovering that the Golden State improperly issued a staggering number of commercial driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. And Australia's spy chief accusing hackers backed by the Chinese Communist regime of targeting critical infrastructure all over the planet with the sole intention of committing sabotage. Also, it's the end of an era as the very last penny rolls off the conveyor belt at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, and this is really bizarre. There's a new song that's skyrocketing to the top of the country music charts and taking the airwaves by storm. Now, the weird part, allegedly, there's no singer and there's no band. Yeah, AI strikes again. All this and much more coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to today, and we kick things off with this. President Trump now throwing his substantial political weight behind our country's H1B visa program for skilled foreign workers and proclaiming that our country simply can't move forward successfully without it. The president says that right now the U.S. simply does not produce enough skilled workers of our own to fill all the jobs which are needed here on our shores. He says that while there are plenty of talented people here in America, unfortunately, many of them are lacking the specific talent which many modern gigs require, making it necessary to import a whole bunch of experienced workers from overseas. 47 goes on to point out there's a learning curve associated with a number of high-tech jobs, that people have to be taught how to do them, and that you can't just grab someone off the unemployment line, toss them into a factory, and trust them to make complicated items like missiles. Additionally, he claims that the September ICE raid at the Hyundai plant in Georgia proves his point. Says the hundreds of South Korean nationals deported as a result of that raid, they were simply experienced workers who were teaching Americans how to make state-of-the-art batteries. Also says our country would have been much better off if they were allowed to finish the job. In case you missed it, the president recently signed an executive order which imposes a $100,000 fee in order to apply for a 3-year H1B visa. Supporters claim the program helps companies successfully grow their businesses and ultimately provide additional jobs here in the U.S. Opponents, however, they argue that the program merely allows companies to replace American workers with cheaper foreign labor, and that in the end, the wages for qualified U.S. employees winds up going down as well. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Bottom line, the president, he's 100% correct, and on two different fronts. Now, to begin with, the Trump administration is convinced there are certain jobs here in the States which require employees who have a particular skill set, and those positions, they got to be filled. If the domestic talent pool is running dry, we can simply make good use of the H-1B visa program to attract well-qualified candidates, and at the end of the day, check it out, everybody wins. Employers will have specialized staff. Employees will have well-paying jobs. Those jobs won't have to be outsourced to a foreign country, and the U.S. will, in theory, retain the competitive edge. Additionally, by tapping into the global talent pool and bringing the best of the best here to the U.S., we won't have to worry about legitimate talent, people with something to offer to our nation, entering our country illegally and then suffering through the time and the expense of finding, detaining, and then deporting them. And that is a nobody wins game. The caveats are pretty basic. Anyone afforded an H-1B visa, they should be thoroughly vetted and reasonably well monitored while they're in our country, and hopefully each person will make a substantial contribution to the success of the USA. Now tell us what you think, and we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com, and producer Davey is in the house to help break down your thoughts. And Davey, have at it. Who's up first?
Okay, Bill, we've got Melanie checking in with us today from Little Rock, Arkansas.
Melanie, a delight to hear from you. Share your wisdom with us. What do you got?
Okay, she says, we are in an existential fight, and we need to attract all the talent we can get, no matter where they're from.
Absolutely, no matter where they're from. However, they have to be appropriately vetted. Now, look, I'm all for the H-1B visa program, but hopefully all U.S.-based employers will do what they can first to fill the available jobs with well-skilled U.S. citizens right here at home before giving those jobs to foreigners. Otherwise, in my mind, they're only engaging in what I call disguised outsourcing, and that would not be good. All right, change things up just a bit now. Shift our focus to a bit of alarming news about a federal crackdown on thousands of potentially dangerous big rig truck drivers who are currently operating on our nation's highways. This cannot be good. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy now reporting that the California Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, has just admitted to illegally handing out nearly 17,000 commercial driver's licenses. Check out who they went to. They're being handed over to foreign nationals. They aren't eligible to hold those licenses. What were they thinking? Now, Duffy says that after weeks of claiming they did nothing wrong, both the state of California and Governor Gavin Newsom have been caught red-handed in their lies, and that all of those questionable trucking licenses, they are being sort of immediately revoked. They are, but it gets a little tricky. I'll tell you more coming up. He also says all those drivers have already been told their licenses no longer meet federal requirements and that they will expire in just 60 days. That's the bit of the caveat. In my mind, that's actually 60 days too late, but it's a start. Duffy goes on to say that the discovery is just the tip of the iceberg and that his actions aimed at keeping our roads safe and upholding the rule of law. That makes perfect sense. Also vows that his agency won't stop until every last illegal immigrant has been removed from behind the wheel of California's semi-trucks and school buses. And Davey, it's all part of what I call MTSA, the MTSA movement, which you might be familiar with, yes?
No, Bill, what's MTSA?
Making transportation safe again. Absolutely. Now, according to Duffy, the discovery was made after a government audit revealed a number of system-wide errors in California. Those mistakes allowing thousands of commercial driving licenses to be issued to both people whose visas had already expired, as well as to immigrants who had no verifiable legal status in the first place. In the meantime, California is one of the few states which openly allows illegal immigrants to get ordinary driver's licenses. They're now being ordered by the federal government to submit a thorough audit of their commercial driver's license program, and that's beginning with anyone who's not a citizen of the U.S. Now, how could you battle that? Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. This is just the epitome of wrong. Doling out thousands and thousands of commercial driver's licenses to folks who are not legally allowed to hold them, that is a critical safety issue. This particular type of license allows the holder to be at the controls of a variety of buses, big rigs too, and some of those rigs, I checked it out, they can have a max gross weight of up to 80,000 pounds. So clearly, the only most well-trained and legally qualified drivers should be issued these licenses before they're allowed to manipulate the controls of one of those huge 18-wheelers. For the state of California to hand out those licenses like they're less valuable than a box of crackers, that's to ignore federal law and, more important, public safety. Governor Newsom, you did it again. You dropped the ball. You endangered the lives of more people than you'll ever know. And fortunately, the Department of Transportation, they're on top of their game, taking charge and cleaning up your mess. This is not the way to oversee your state's DMV, your Department of Motor Vehicles, and perhaps voters all over the country. They'll recall this incident when you officially launched what will be your failed campaign for President of the United States. Now, time now to buckle up, America, and tell us what you're thinking about what sounds like licenses for sale in California. You'll find us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Behind the wheel, that guy, producer Davey. And Davey, who do we turn to first?
Okay, Bill, we got some guy named Tank checking in with us from Galveston, Texas.
Hi, Tank from Galveston. State your business, sir.
Okay, he says, this is an outrage. Letting those incompetent maniacs saddle up behind the wheel is a danger to law-abiding American citizens from coast to coast.
Yeah, spot on. That's exactly right. Look, the person driving your kids around town on a school bus or cruising up and down Interstate 5 in California at 70 miles per hour in a big rig with a fully loaded trailer should only do so if they're well-trained, licensed, and in full compliance with all laws. And that's just common sense. All right, switch things up just a bit now. Turn our attention to a stark warning from down under concerning the treachery and evil of the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah, they're going after our Aussie pals as well. Australia's top spy chief now accusing Chinese-backed hackers of targeting his nation's critical infrastructure and claiming that their ultimate goal is to intentionally commit sabotage. The intelligence chief is pointing his finger at a couple of widely known hacking groups. I've heard of these guys. They're called Salt Typhoon and Volt Typhoon, which he says are working directly for both the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, as well as China's military. He says these groups have already attacked a number of vital telecommunications systems in both his country and the U.S. Also claims they successfully infiltrated an American military installation, that one in Guam. And that gives the CCP the ability to turn off all communication systems with simply the flip of a switch. And that is brutally alarming. The spy chief goes on to say that the group's ongoing attacks are targeting water facilities, energy networks, transportation hubs, and more. Also warns that these hackers are ultimately seeking to gain long-term access to all these systems, that is, map them thoroughly, and remain there undetected until they spring their trap and put their destructive plan into place. Kind of sounds like a movie, but it's an actual scam. And it's all unfolding right in front of each and every one of us, right in front of our eyes. Even more alarming, the Australian intelligence boss says that, unfortunately, his country still gravely underestimates the threat which the CCP poses. He warns that right now, foreign governments, such as China, are preparing to unleash chaos by interfering with free and fair elections, wreaking havoc on essential infrastructure, and doing all they can to undermine critical alliances throughout the free world. They're basically trying to take over the planet, the way I see it. Now, some additional breaking news regarding the CCP. A new bridge in western China collapsing in spectacular fashion less than 10 months after its completion. I've seen the pictures. It's really dramatic. That bridge, constructed by a state-backed enterprise and part of an initiative by the communist regime to boost economic development in that part of their country. Here's the deal. They're pretty good at espionage. I won't take that away from them, but they don't build great bridges. And Davey, would you call that bridge that collapsed now the bridge to nowhere?
Oh, I certainly would now, Bill.
I think I would as well. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. This isn't exactly breaking news. Now, the Chinese Communist Party and their proxies, they've been at this game for a good chunk of time. We've suffered a variety of their attacks right here at home. We know what they're up to. We know what they're capable of. And clearly, we're not their only victims. I guess we could all fortify our systems, but the more defensive we, Australia, and others become, the more offensive the enemy becomes. And this is beginning to feel like an actual war. National security is at risk, and in fact, global security is at risk. The Trump administration will hopefully work closely with all of our allies worldwide to do all we can to collectively stop China and all of their terrorist bad actors from potentially crippling the world. That China's communist regime and the hackers they're backing clearly know how to manipulate a number of critical systems all over the planet is both mind-boggling and frightening. And today, they seem almost unstoppable. Yeah, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, and we are all of us right now in a very peculiar and vulnerable position. Now, Producer Davey, not sure if that Norton antivirus is going to help anybody out, but anything is worth a shot at this point. And America, what are you thinking? You'll catch us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey, who do we turn to?
Okay, Bill, we've got Nadine from Las Vegas, Nevada with us today.
Hello, Nadine from Vegas, and what are you thinking?
She says, if we know who these hackers are and who's behind them, why don't we track them down and do something about it?
Well, it's not as simple as going over to China with an arrest warrant and doing something about it. That's a communist regime. We're kind of hamstrung right now. And by the way, just to piggyback on that, computers years ago, to my understanding, they were supposed to make everything better for us. Better, faster, easier. And unfortunately, for all the benefits associated with computers, in my estimation, life has become actually more challenging, threatening, and just downright dangerous. Now, some additional headlines we are keeping a very close watch on here in the News Roundup newsroom. And first up on Capitol Hill, the House of Representatives. They're gathering for the first time in nearly 2 months and voting on a bill to finally reopen the federal government following the longest shutdown in our nation's history. Moving along to the city of brotherly love, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia striking the very last penny and closing the book on the production of our country's 1 cent piece after more than 200 years. Well, that move coming after the cost of producing those coins has risen to nearly 4 cents a piece. And the funny thing is, in this economy, the $1 bill is worth about 4 cents. So maybe we should make $1 bills the new penny. I'm no economist, Davey. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. And a headline coming out of Europe. Russia saying they're now ready to resume peace talks with Ukraine in Istanbul. That overture coming as Moscow continues to grind out significant gains on the battlefield and capture more chunks of Ukrainian territory prior to the onset of that long, cold, brutal winter. Now, gliding over to the world of business now, and a quick glance at a couple of stories stirring the pot in finance, also in commerce, and more. And leading off, Disney is reportedly losing more than $4 million a day due to the company's ongoing dispute with YouTube TV. That disagreement involving a blackout of ABC, ESPN, and more on Google's YouTube TV platform. And experts predict that both parties are likely to reach a new deal shortly. Till then, I say crank up your VCR and watch a rerun of the recent World Series where the Dodgers won. Didn't mean to have a spoiler alert, but in case you didn't know, I watched the game and the Dodgers, in fact, they did win. And shifting gears now to a touch of auto-related news, General Motors, you know them as GM, ordering thousands of their suppliers to cut ties with China and find other places to get their parts and raw materials. Citing disruptions to their operations, GM is now looking to eventually move their supply chains out of China altogether. GM, fine work. And turning to the economy, President Trump boldly claiming that costs in our country are way down. That gas is on the way to $2 a gallon. Well, maybe, but not in my neighborhood. I'm paying close to $5 a gallon. And that things are going very well here in the U.S. Meanwhile, a new report from the Bank of America says that nearly a quarter of all U.S. households, they're now living paycheck to paycheck, and that the percentage of lower income earners who are struggling to make ends meet even higher. I get it. And now time for a quick gander at what we call the lighter side of news. Actor Andy Garcia, I know that guy, handsome devil, says he's returning to the scene of the crime, reprising his role as the bad guy and teaming up once again with his old pal George Clooney for the upcoming movie Ocean's 14. Now, the string of blockbuster hits capturing the public's imagination ever since Ocean's 11 first landed on the silver screen. That was back in 2001, nearly a quarter of a century ago. And that was actually a remake of the original Ocean's 11, which came out, if memory serves correct, about 1960, all them years ago. And I say stop already. There are only so many ways you can rob a casino. We don't need any more Ocean's movies. There's the deal. McDonald's sold hamburgers for an awful long time, but eventually even McDonald's branched out with chicken and that goofy barbecued pork thing disaster, whatever that is. Think big. You're Hollywood, and you've got to do better. All right, hundreds of bagpipers in Australia have just set a new world record by gathering in downtown Melbourne for a rousing group rendition of the local band AC/DC's rock and roll classic, It's a Long Way to the Top. I don't know that one. Thousands of adoring fans cramming into the area to witness the spectacular display for themselves. Well done, producer Davey. And I'll tell you, nothing like a bagpipe story to increase our ratings. And I'm hoping that producer Pranov in the background is not playing some terrible music with bagpipes. By the way, and this is actually a true story, last Friday I parked my car right here in the News Roundup Studios parking lot, left my expensive bagpipes in the front seat with the doors unlocked and the windows down. They were rolled down all the way to the bottom. And producer Davey, when I came back to the car, you're not going to believe what I found. You won't believe this.
What happened, Bill? What'd you find when you came back?
I came back and found 2 sets of bagpipes.
Oh, Bill, that's just tragic. That's terrible.
It is just tragic. Oh, it was a bad day. All right, a country music song called Walk My Walk has just skyrocketed to the top of the U.S. charts, and remarkably, the singer's voice is reportedly generated entirely by artificial intelligence, whatever that is. While many other songs have been created using AI, this landmark hit is allegedly the first artificially created tune to peak at number 1. Now, producer Davey, you're very well connected, so please put the call in and let's bring in the lead singer for an in-studio interview and maybe even a live studio concert. Then we can get
Bill.
the band. Hold on, Davey. We get the band to autograph their new album. Hold on, Davey. I'm in the middle of a very important story and maybe even have a big contest and a big
Bill.
giveaway.
Bill.
Yes?
Bill, you got to slow down there a bit. Yeah, the band is not real. It's created entirely by a computer. It's artificial intelligence. There's no people there.
You spoil everything. This is like that time I told you to introduce me to that actress lady, Tilly Norwood, and you said she was fake too. Well, I got news for you. It's Hollywood, and all the actresses are fake, so quit dragging me down. And now, time for us to call it a wrap on the Wednesday edition of the Big News Roundup. But before we go, and as we do each and every day here on the program, we share with you a very notable quote. And these baffling words come to us today from Burt Bacharach, who said, "Knowing when to leave may be the smartest thing anyone can learn." Bacharach was an award-winning American composer and a songwriter who is considered one of the most influential popular music figures of his time. Among his well-known hits, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, My Noggin, Also Close to You, Arthur's Theme, and literally dozens more. He was very prolific, and I know you've heard of him. Now, here's what most people don't know about Burt Bacharach. In Vegas, they actually named a very popular card game after him, and it's called Burt Bacharach, or just Bacharach for short. You didn't know that, did you, Davey?
No, what are you talking about, Bill? Burt Bacharach is one of the great composers of all time, pop music composers. Baccarat is the game. It's a completely different thing.
Oh, Burt Bacharach and Burt Baccarat. I don't know if that's accurate. I'll look into that. Now it is time for us to bust on out. But before we go, he's always correcting me, that producer Davey. Never forget the News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcast can do for you, but what you can do for your podcast. For example, here's what you can do. Simply subscribe to the program so you never miss a single episode. And if you don't mind, we sure appreciate it. Hit up a friend or two and ask them to subscribe to the channel as well. And now it looks like our time, it's officially up. So have an awesome day today. Please stay safe. And let's all continue to watch out for one another. It's a wicked world sometime. Now, Engineer Jamie, please, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to dim the lights, going to fade to black, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow afternoon. And by the way, Davey, before we go, in Vegas, I'm pretty sure it's called Bacharach, the card game, not Baccarat, Bacharach.
No, Bill, you've got it wrong. And not only do you have it a little bit wrong, you've got it 100% wrong, if not 1,000% wrong. Okay, Burt Bacharach is one of the great pop music composers of all time. You've heard Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. You've heard his songs again and again. This guy is a popular figure. He was on the Austin Powers movie. He plays the piano. Everybody knows who he is.